It seems Steam's supremacy has once again led to a couple of dog water tier losers being extremely mad about the fact that they cannot make a product that can rival Steam. Not because it's hard, just doing things that are good for the consumer, but because they always must add things that make the consumers mad and angry and the platform unusable because of greed. A story as old as time, almost.
Okay, this one's going to be a real touchy subject. So, 306 game studios were just surveyed about Steam. 75% were senior executives, 77% were from companies with 50 plus employees, and 72% called it a monopoly. And by it I mean Steam. They called Steam a monopoly. But here's the thing. The company behind this survey, the survey that's caused this news story that's led to a lot of sparks over the internet, well, that company is not exactly neutral on this matter. And I think to make all of this so much more relevant, Valve just announced their return to console gaming with the Steam machine. And certainly, the more powerful the
Based, if the Steam machine is gonna be like $600 or even $700 at this point, and it's good enough to run most modern games, that's gonna be massive. That's gonna instantaneously win. Think about it. Xbox is dead. PlayStation's overpriced garbage led by a bunch of people that are even more garbage. Ninhudo? I don't know. So Steam can literally take over all of the games industry, and this is hilarious. This is the only monopoly probably that people want in actuality because everyone else is just bad. And all they need to do to rival Steam is just make a good product. Not be like Amazon Game Studios that after 15 years of... Yes, Amazon Games existed for 15 years. No one even knew. And their main objective was to rival Steam? What? No one knew you were even real. What do you mean rival Steam? With what? With what? Day one Amazon delivery?
Valve gets, and the more the scope of their company touches in terms of hardware and platform stuff, well, the more that happens, the larger the target on their back will grow. And that's why we do need to talk about this today. These were not random developers. The survey targeted decision maker managers who basically knew their company's financials. It covered US and UK studios only, 2/3 were American, 1/3 were British, and it was heavily weighted towards the bigger operations, which I think should tell us something. Now, 77% were from studios with over 50 employees, so basically, the kinds of companies that should, in theory, benefit some of the most from Steam's volume discounts. If you're not aware, by the way, if you hit 10 million USD revenue, then you actually get a change in your Steam cut down to 25%, and I believe if it's over 50 million in revenue, then that goes down to 20%. So even though many of these companies will be getting preferential treatment, 53% said that they were concerned about depending on Steam. Now here's why that percentage is as high as it is, though some would argue that what I'm about to say should probably justify
Saying that they're worried about their dependence on Steam is a double-edged sword because Steam is not forcing you to choose Steam. Steam is not forcing you to, be its only saving grace. It's just no one else is competition. Everyone else just shoots themselves in the foot, and that's it. That's how this goes.
the percentage of studios being suspicious or frustrated actually being higher. So here's the numbers. For 88% of these studios, Steam generates 75% of their revenue. For 37% of them, it's 90% of their revenue. Basically, these companies don't choose Steam. They need Steam. They can't really do without it. That means that anything that happens on or to Steam represents risk. I mean, for an example, whenever Valve changed the adult content policies this summer, spicy little story, that impacted a lot of developers who functionally lost their entire market overnight with no appeal and no alternative. Now, obviously, Activision isn't out there making 18+ smut.
By the way, this is just one more argument why SteamDB stats are actually very, very important and why they govern what's gonna succeed and what's not. Because let's be real, outside of the Blizzard launcher, which is losing relevance day after day in extreme rates, because hey, if I can play a Blizzard game on Steam, I'm fucking choosing Steam. Like, the Blizzard launcher sucks nowadays. It's complete garbage. It's literally just looked at Steam and then like, oh my god, what am I gonna do with this bullet? Well, I'm gonna use it to shoot my foot. That's what they did. And it's that simple. And these statistics effectively show that, again, SteamDB stats are the best because, well, this actually, if you believe them, which I honestly kind of don't, I'm not going to believe unless I see, the baseline from which they actually got these stats from. Boys, listen, I do not trust any statistics online if you don't show me the actual baseline where the ideas are derived from, okay? Because if you look, for example, most happy countries in the world, well, congratulations. All of the top countries have also, for some strange reason, the highest Minecrafting levels ever, and their residents are completely popped up on pills usually. So it kind of feels cheap to call that the most happy country ever because either you're already in the next safe zone or well you're on pills. It is what it is. It's crazy.
Games on Steam, but I think you understand the issue. Now, to give you a taste of the scale here, Steam pulled in $10.8 billion in 2024. They had 41.6 million concurrent users in October, which was up from
41 all-time peak users. Keep in mind, I have never looked into this statistic, but I'm pretty sure this is just the same as for games at the same time, which means that Steam has a user base of roughly 400 million. 400 million active users a month. Minimum. Probably minimum. Now, we don't have an exact math for how many active users it actually is per month based off of average player numbers, but typically adding a 0, you're going to be at least in the right direction, probably. But again, still not exactly real science.
4 million in 2021. That is a rate of growth that's absolutely wild. And of course, as Steam grows, relatively speaking, their competitors end up shrinking. And as times went on, their positions only got more solid and more dominant. So when asked directly whether they think Steam holds a monopoly, these executives gave a fairly clear answer. 72% of them said yes. But here's where things get interesting. Because what if I told you? There was a conflict of interest involved. Do you know what kind of drives me mad? Walking out of a video planning meeting with lots of scribbled ass notes. The survey actually came from a company called Rocky, and if you haven't heard of Rocky, basically there's a good reason for that. They're a B2B company, you'd never really see them as a consumer, and what they do is they help publishers sell games on non-Steam platforms, and essentially they believe that they can undercut grey market key resellers, who of course are the ones that are out there exploiting international currency differences. But for their business model to work, it requires developers to put games in more markets, and that means more stores. Many of which, if you are, say, the typical Western listener of this channel, you may not have even heard of. But basically, more games everywhere, but not Steam. That's basically what they want. So from Rocky's perspective, they would love developers to embrace platforms like Gamivo, Kinguin, Iniba, and Driffle. Only half of those I recognized. But here's the problem with that. Developers simply aren't using those platforms. They're not taking them seriously. And one of the reasons why is because their entire audience lives on Steam. So, in order to make some hay out of this, Rocky commissioned this survey that led to them asking 306 studios about Steam's dominance, and they got the exact headline that they wanted. Quote, 72% of developers think Steam is a monopoly. It's a good headline, especially.
I wonder how they got this, because there's multiple ways that you can actually get this answer. AK, you can ask a question, do you think Steam is the biggest platform for games? The answer, yes. Do you think a game will find success if it's successful at Steam? You answer, yes. Do you think, and more questions like this. And if people answer for these obvious questions of success is success with the answer yes, these people can aggregate these answers to mean yes, Steam is a monopoly. Everyone answered the monopoly questions with yes, which is obviously extremely deceptive because that may not even be because if that asked directly, people may not actually answer like this. But considering you just spread it out over very obvious yes and no questions that any person with a brain would answer yes, well, you duped them. This is how these things can go. Now, granted, did they do this? No idea. No, absolutely no idea. But I'm just saying, this is a way that companies tend to get results like this. It's really easy to lie with statistics.
I see one. It sparked debate. I saw this all over the place. But obviously, that's not 72% of all developers. It is 72% of the ones that they sampled, and they have an obvious
That's a big sample size.
Agenda. But even with that obvious agenda, there is something that developers don't tend to say out loud. You gotta remember that two things can be true. Yes, this is obviously biased by Rocky, but also, yes, some of the results are revealing. To go through them, 35.9% strongly agreed that Steam is a monopoly, 36.3% slightly agreed, and 19% held.
There we go. You see, there we go. There we go. There's levels to this.
No opinion, with just over 8% disagreeing. That's a fairly large split, right? But here's actually the catch. The survey never defined monopoly. Studios just made up their own definition of monopoly. It was whatever was conjured up in the head of the person responding to the survey. Now, critics have argued this issue for over a decade, and one guy who we often go to because real sound analysis is Matt Piscatella, and he flagged this up, that people have been calling Steam a monopoly since 2010, and that's despite the fact that back then their market share was far weaker than it is today. And to run you through just how much Steam has grown, by 2013 Steam held 75% of PC gaming. Now, of course, our boy Tim Sweeney would in 2023 go on to put that at 85%. But of course, the Epic Game Store exists, GOG exists, Amazon tried and failed like so many others. So technically, yeah, Steam is not the only store. It isn't a complete insane monopoly. Valve does not control.
I wonder if it actually fits the definition here. Is just being the biggest store and people choosing to use you, but you're not really trying to force people to use you, does that work as a monopoly? I mean, the fact that Steam doesn't really do shady things to destroy competition should probably make it safe against antitrust. But I don't know.
The supply of games. They just happen to be the best distributor of games. And you can easily argue that there's nothing stopping someone else from coming along and making something better than Steam. Anyone can compete, but what Steam does have is something that's far more powerful, and that is influence over their audience and a majority of the market share. One commenter I saw when I was going through my research.
How does Steam have influence over us? I'm sorry. What am I missing here? You person watching who just literally now liked the video and subscribed because it takes less than a second. Do you think that Steam has impact over your decisions? I'm sorry. I must be not reading the Steam emails that tell me how to live my life. Huh. Strange. I thought that's like one of the main reasons why I actually, like Steam, is the fact that they don't give me an obnoxious fucking retarded email about how I should live my life, which, by the way, is becoming more and more prevalent and stupid. Hello, come on, camera. Please, it's me. Is becoming a more relevant and stupid thing. Every company, I don't know who these people are, but someone has been playing a really huge grift in the games industry with the everyday updates. If you play Magic the Gathering Arena, you know that every single day there's this giant fucking glowing shit on your screen that tells you the stuff that happened this week, the stuff that happened today, big news! And no one wants that. Everyone hates that. In fact, that ruins your usage and enjoyment of the platform as a general thing, right? And every platform is doing this. Blizzard, Magic the Gathering Arena. There's more things that I use. You will use also other things that literally give you some kind of useless. Oh, here's new shit. Oh, Discord, right? Discord, bro. Discord. Every time I fucking open you, I literally could not care less to know about the new things that you're doing. You understand that's how Skype died, right? You understand, by the way, that's literally how Skype got replaced. Because Skype did this shit. So Skype tried to improve things for people that no one wanted to improve, then they fucking shoved it in your face. So yeah, these companies that are currently doing this annoying shove in your face type of things, oh, we're improving things and garbage, they're gonna not exist in probably a couple of years. Most of them are not gonna exist because it's just annoying. I'm at the point where literally, if you offer me Discord from any other company that is as good as at messaging my friends and joining lobbies and speaking with people, but without the daily updates, fuck, I'm using that. I'm using that.
For this really nailed it by saying, quote, "It seems wrong to call it a monopoly when everyone else just puts out objectively worse alternatives. Honestly, I find that pretty agreeable."
True.
And another person who seems to is Larian's director of publishing. Obviously, Baldur's Gate 3 did real well on Steam, and part of that game's development model was facilitated by Steam's early access system. But he said, "It's almost as if it isn't providing a shit service defined by public shareholder KPIs." Yeah, so I think he's making his point very clearly, and
oh god, is it the return of the KPIs, key production inputs, or whatever the fuck it was? It's bullshit. Any company that does KPIs is bullshit.
Basically, for the average consumer, yeah, Steam's absolutely awesome. It's also not a technical monopoly. If you want to use some of the technical terminology, it's what you'd call an oligopoly, which basically is the absolute dominant player. And now, even if you build something that's better than Steam, the real point, and I suppose the oligopoly point, is that 85% of the market, as of 2023, it could actually be higher by now, has already got their library there. So what that means is that Steam technically is not a monopoly. They are just so dominant that that distinction stops functionally mattering. And it is exactly why governments are actually starting to pay attention. And for Valve, there is one little black mark in their history that could really damage their arguments. It's in the form of a leaked email, and that's what we'll get to next. By now, we've established that if you
I remember that one.
can't sell your game in Steam, you basically can't reach most of the audience. And many Steam lovers would also say, yeah, look, if the game's not in Steam, I just don't want to deal with the faff of having lots of different launchers on my computer. That's understandable, but consolidation does come with problems. Adult game makers very much learned that this summer, but the impact goes beyond just the adult game people and beyond just developers. This is where we've got to talk about the United Kingdom and Poland. That's because both are investigating Steam for anti-competitive practices, where basically they want to understand if being both a store and a platform is harming consumers. Now, of course, you may argue that Steam has done nothing wrong, right? They provide multiplayer tools, they provide relatively cheap games, great downloads, but even with that, there are still ways to compete. Just take a look at GOG, right? They sell DRM-free games, they champion preservation. That's competition, that's them standing out in the market. But obviously GOG does not have Steam's market share, and nobody is selling third-party keys for GOG Galaxy. So what do you do when there's technically competition, but it doesn't really matter? Now, here's where things get real interesting and legally interesting. Because Steam is both a store and a platform, they have what's called a most favored nation clause. And what that means is that if you generate Steam keys, then you must price them comparatively to Steam. And of course, in isolation, that's completely reasonable, right? That makes a lot of sense. If you're going to go generate a Steam key and then sell it to someone, you shouldn't be undercutting Valve and Valve's store, because they're the people who will be distributing and, all of those other...
Oh, yeah, this is the thing. Yes.
...things that...
This is the thing that happened like a couple of months ago.
...game. But where this gets messy is when we go global. Now, this report from Apillion shows that almost all of Steam's recent growth has came from non-English speaking users. Yet, Steam's automated currency conversion actively harms some regions with outdated exchange rates. And this is definitely true. I get loads of emails from people saying that this is a real problem where they live. And that is actually why Poland's government is investigating, because they believe that Steam's policies are hurting Polish players. If you combine the currency conversion rates, which quite often end up being bullshit, with the most favored nation clause, then you've basically got a huge problem where the price floor for selling your game is being dictated by a bad currency conversion rate on Steam. And I think it's reasonable to say...
What the hell does it mean, bad currency conversion rate on Steam? Because Steam is not fucking actually choosing the conversion rate. They are if the Steam... I don't know the inner workings, but I am willing to bet everything I have that Steam is not making up their own conversion rates, that they are using some kind of arbitrary worldwide shit. That's what they're doing. Otherwise, they are making themselves liable for, abusing a country or whatever, however you want to put that. So, whatever Steam is using, it's not technically their fault if it's actually is supposed to be a legitimate source for currency conversion or whatever, and its data is off. Steam completely then just shuffles the blame onto them because, hey, we're Steam. We don't do currency transactions. We don't know what currency even is. Okay, we don't know. Is it blue? Is it purple? Is it an elephant? We don't know these things. That's why we are using this globally official represented throughout the world in every country conversion statistic thingamajiggy. That's how Steam does it. Because then it's really hard to make them liable, because if someone is getting screwed like Britain, which deserves that, or Poland, Steam just can say, well, it's not like we wanted to screw you over, it's just this side that claims that it knows these things is wrong. Your problem is with them, not with us.
That, say in the case of Poland, that would be hurting the Polish consumer. But here's where things get a little bit worse for Valve, and this is what they need to be careful about. You see, there's a class action suit, we've talked about it before, it's from Willfire Games. Now, expert witness emails revealed that Steam support once told developers that the most favored nation clause applied to non-Steam keys. And if there's anything in this video that I suppose is counter to Valve, that I'd like you to think about the most, it is this one. This is the one that I think does matter. So, if you are a developer and you decide to sell a DRM-free version of your game, and it's on your own website, which would mean that all you'd really pay is the payment processing fee, so more money would go back to you. If you do that, according to this email, Valve may block you from Steam entirely. Now remember, I'm not talking about a Steam key being sold off Steam. I am talking about just a DRM-free version of your game being
yes, this is the stuff that I remember. The trick here is... It's really I don't remember it fully, but I'll try to explain this the easiest way. Steam actually has a very good reason why they do this. Because effectively, those companies are trying to do this. They're trying to say, hey, look at this Steam shit. It's really expensive. If you want this, you can get it here, way less of a price. That's effectively what the ploy, what the idea, what the grift there was with this. So Steam banned them because they were trying to abuse the fact that these platforms could always sell it cheaper, and that made Steam look bad, and that was the point of these platforms doing it. Hopefully I explained it good enough, but hey, it's an old thing right now.
Sold on, say, a developer store or any other store. And that's quite tricky, because Steam, yeah, controls about 85% of the market. But if Steam's rules then dictate prices for the remaining 15% of the market, well, that is when words like anti-competition and monopoly actually get serious.
Yes, but if you're trying to abuse Steam and make it so you want to force people to buy on your platform, then it kind of doesn't apply that much.
Yes. And by serious, I mean governments can start getting involved. And obviously, if you're
Well, in any case, nothing really is currently happening with that, but, well, we're gonna see. Obviously, the push against Steam is massive currently. Everyone's pissed because, yeah, no one is really capable of just governing and lording over Steam and telling what kind of woke nonsense is there. Because keep in mind, most of this is actually just about censorship at the end of the day, and wokeness and all of those things. The people have a problem with Steam not because it's actually good, but because it does not comply to these things that we don't like, and that's the big problem. Anyway, that was Billy and News 10 out of 10. Bye.